Hi there, this is Erica with A Needle and Thread, and the tutorial that you're watching today is to learn how to make this backpack. It's called the Range Backpack by Noodlehead. Now the one that they have made in the picture here is actually using waxed canvas, which is a really great fabric to use. It's waterproof and durable, but today we're going to make one out of quilting cotton and cork. The cork I chose as a nice accent to the colors that are in the fabric. Cork is waterproof also, and it is very durable. And it's really nice to sew with because it doesn't need any kind of an interfacing. It gives a lot of body without interfacing. There are a couple of other alterations that I've made to the pattern, but you'll see that as we go through the tutorial. But stick around, and if you have any questions at the end, drop it in the comments below. Shoot me an email at aneedleandthread.com, and I would be just thrilled to help you out. The backpack itself is not difficult. It's a very easy pattern to go through. There are just a whole lot of little elements that you have to keep track of. My biggest tip through the whole thing is to make sure you label everything and you keep track of what each one of your pieces is. That's going to help you go through this process pretty quickly. It took me roughly 8 hours to make it, so I could make it in a day, no trouble. It may take you a little bit longer, but stick with it because it's really fun, very versatile. There's an inside pocket and everything. Here we go. One of the things that I really like about this pattern, about the Range backpack, is that not only are the instructions really easy to follow, and they, on this front page, they actually, tell you what each one of the pieces is, but they also include this sheet here. What this does is it gives you a plan for all of your pieces. I have all of the pieces that I need for the backpack already laid out and labeled. So on this sheet, for instance, the center panel, it tells me what size it needs to be, the fabric that I need to use, and then the fusible interfacing if I need fusible interfacing on that particular piece. And so as I go through, I can cut this out and I can pin it down onto my fabric. And it really helps, guys, to keep everything in order. Because as you can see, there are a million different pieces here to work with. You have to be able to keep track of what each one is so that as the instructions tell you what piece to use, you know which one to pick up and to work with. So I have all of my pieces laid out here. The back of the pattern tells you exactly what you'll need. Those include the 2 slider rings. This is for the backpack. For the straps, you need some D-rings. Now the pattern, I've made some adjustments myself, just because I tend to be like that. But the pattern asks for rectangular rings. I'm choosing to use D-rings. So you're gonna need 4 D-rings. It tells you what size. And then there are fun little ways to personalize your design. I've chosen this time to use a little tag for my zipper that says handmade. When you buy the hardware, the bag hardware, for any of the bags that you use, I like to use Emmeline bag hardware. And they have a lot of different options for you to tag it as being handmade. So you can have a little hang tag for your zipper. You can have little emblems that you can attach onto the fabric itself that will say handmade. Really, really cute stuff, guys. I would advise that you check that out. But these are the pieces of hardware that I'm gonna use. I've cut out all of the pieces that I'm gonna need. I made, like I said, a few adjustments to the pattern. The pattern does not call for cork, but I like the cork. So instead of using just the regular fabric, cotton fabric with interfacing on the bottom, I'm opting to use cork. When you use cork in your bag, you do not need to use any kind of interfacing. It is strong enough and durable enough that you don't need any kind of reinforcement in your fabric. So I suggest cork, but guys, honestly, use whatever fabric pleases you. The fabric line that I'm using comes from Riley Blake, and the outside of my bag is going to be this navy blue with the fairies. And then the inside of my bag along with the straps will be this lighter pinky peach, also with the fairies. It's gonna come out so cute. I think you guys are really gonna love it. If you order it from me with the kit, then you will receive these colors: this cork, this peach fabric, the navy fabric. You'll also receive the hardware and a matching zipper. And here's the last change that I've made. The pattern asks for you to use fusible fleece as a liner for the back part of the backpack. Well, I had to change that up a bit. Instead of using fusible fleece, I'm using fusible foam. What this does is, first, it gives a nice quilted look to the back of the backpack, and then it also gives you a little bit of extra protection depending on what you carry in your backpack. It gives your back a little extra protection from whatever is inside of your pack. You have those options to kind of play with as you're putting your backpack together. When you order the kit from me, you are going to get the foam. You're not going to get the fleece. Okay, so let's go ahead and start with assembly. So the next step of the process is going to be to fuse the back of the backpack onto the fusible foam that we're going to use. Now, it's a simple process. This particular foam is one side fusible, which means that it has the glue on one side and no glue on the other. The way we're going to fuse it is just to lay the fabric on top like you normally would, and they are cut to the same size. And then I'm going to put a press cloth on top, and I'm going to spray the press cloth with some water. Just mist the press cloth. I'm not misting the fabric, my backpack fabric, I'm misting the press cloth. And with a hot iron, I'm just gonna come and press. And what this does is the steam goes through, heats up the foam, the glue that's on the foam, but the press cloth is protecting my navy fabric. I'm going to stitch directly onto the lines that are here on my fabric using a contrasting thread, and I'm going to start in the middle, going along my center diagonal. Okay, so as you can see, I have done all of my diagonal quilting lines going to one side. I did start in the center, going down, and just progressed on through. Now, normally when we do diagonal lines and we do hash lines, hash mark quilting, crosshatch, there you go, that's the word. When you do crosshatch quilting, you would start in the middle and work out and go in opposite directions. But because our fabric is fused to the foam, it's not going to shift, and so you can continue going in the same direction each time. So that's not going to be a problem. Now I'm going to go ahead and do my quilting in the other direction and then move on to the next step. So guys, I have completed all the quilting of the back of my backpack. You can see that I used a contrasting thread, a nice green that matches perfectly with all the little fairies and butterflies that are on the fabric. And I quilted 2 inches apart. I drew the lines with a chalk pencil and quilted 2-inch lines to get that crosshatch look. I did not need to use a backing fabric like you normally would with quilting. Using the foam on the back is perfectly fine. You don't need any additional fabric. So I got that done. Now the next step is to make the connector and those pieces to get the strap of the backpack attached to the bottom end of the unit. This is kind of a confusing part of the instructions, so I want to really walk through this with you so that you can really understand how everything is going to go together. So like I had said at the very beginning, it's really important to label each one of your elements before you even start, because there are so many random pieces that are floating out there that are close in size that you really want to make sure that you have the right ones working with to make the different elements of your backpack. Now the pieces that I'm working with right now, I have my strap holders here, 2 of them, and I have my side connectors here. I have 2 of them as well. I'm going to start off with the strap holders. Now in the center, running down the center, you can see that I've already fused my interfacing. The instructions asked for me to cut the interfacing to be 1 inch smaller than the fabric is, and so that's what you see here. I've also fused interfacing to the back of my side connectors, and those are full size, so the interfacing is the same size as my fabric. Working with the strap holders, this is what you're going to do. You're going to fold the short end, the 2-inch ends, together to meet in the center, and you're going to press them to get a nice sharp crease. Then you're going to fold them so that your folded edges meet, and give it 1 good press again. And I'm going to repeat the process with the other one. All right, so now that I have my strap holders creased and ready to go, I'm going to go over to the sewing machine, and the instructions want me to stitch about 1/8 of an inch right along these 2 edges, these folded edges. What that's going to do is it's going to keep this flap closed, okay? It seems a little bit strange that the top edge and the bottom edge are still raw and opened, but it's going to make sense in just a minute. Let's go and sew. So remember I said that we were going to sew those 2 folded edges together, and that's what I've done on both of my strap holders. Now if you look carefully, you'll be able to see that I did a little extra detail stitching. I just did 2 parallel stitches, lines of stitches, just to give a little extra detail to my finished product. Now at this point, I have them separate like this. It now calls for your D-rings or your rectangular rings. You'll slip them in, and you're going to fold them over like this. And then I'm going to just quickly baste close to the edge these 2 raw edges together. How weird is that? Let me get. All right, so I got my D-hooks all connected. I stitched just a quick little stitch along the edge. Yes, it is raggedy down there, but guys, guess what? It's gonna be tucked into another piece of fabric. That's what we're gonna work on next. You'll see exactly how it goes together. So we have our side connectors here. This is what the D-rings are going to end up attaching onto. So what we need to get done here is to fold, the instructions say to fold 1 of the long edges, that's a 6-inch edge. They want you to fold about a 1/2 inch in. So I'm here over with my iron. I'm just gonna do a quick fold so it makes a nice crease. It did open up, but it's a good crease. I'm gonna do the same thing on this side. Now once I have my crease made, I'm going to fold it in half as the instructions direct. So I have my folded edge here, those 2, they open up. Folded edge here, and I'm going to crease it 1 more time with the iron. This is actually the piece that's going to slip into the seam at the base of the backpack that your straps are going to insert into. They end up being little triangles that come off of the bottom of the backpack. All right, so once these are pressed, I'm going to take it over to my cutting board, and I'm going to cut at a diagonal right here, and then insert my D-rings in just like that, okay? Okay, so what we're gonna do now, I brought my pieces, my 2 pieces over here to my cutting mat. I cut at a diagonal, making sure that this fold stays intact and this folded opening that we had pressed stays intact as well. So here are my little extras. They go in the trash. Now, I also, with my marking pencil, just made a quick little mark right here. It's about 1/4 of an inch in from this folded edge. I'm going to insert my D-rings and line them up right at that point. I'm going to push them in about I'm gonna push them in and pin them in place. It does feel bulky and awkward, but super important. Pin them in place. So what I'm looking at right now is a nice folded edge here, inserted my D-ring. I'm going to do those 2 parallel stitches across and down, twice, across and down, to give it that nice little detailed touch. All right, so now that you have the strap connectors all put together, one's gonna go on either side of your backpack. The next step is going to be to make the straps. Now the instructions ask for you to cut a strip of your strap fabric, 36 inches long, and for each one of your straps. And then it wants you to cut 2 pieces of your interfacing. Now the reason for this is because the width of the interfacing when it comes off of the bolt is only 20 inches long. So you need to butt them up together. And I don't know if you guys can see it, but right here, I butted them up together, fused it all onto my strap fabric, the inside of my strap fabric. And that ends up leaving me with about, I don't know, what, 4 inches worth of interfacing hanging off. So I'm gonna cut that off before I actually start to make my straps. In order to make the straps, it's very, very simple. On one end, I'm going to fold over, just like I did with the connectors. I'm gonna fold it over and crease it. Then I will fold over at the ironing board my cut edges in like this. So I fold it in toward the center and then fold it again like that and stitch down each edge to keep it closed. That's what I'm gonna do now, and I'll come back and show you what my final straps look like. Okay guys, so the last step that I did was to create the straps, and you can see that I did my parallel stitching on both sides just to add a little bit of nice finishing detail. Makes your finished bag look a little bit more professional. One edge of your straps will be unfinished. It'll be open. The other end is going to be folded in nice and neat. That's an important step. So we have 2 straps here ready to go for when they connect onto the strap connectors that we made before. Our next step is going to be to work on the zipper pouch. Now the front of our bag has this really cute pleated zipper pouch that is kind of concealed. It's a nice little detail touch. This is what it's going to end up looking like. We have the lining fabric, which is my pink. We have my outside exterior fabric, which is blue. And then you know what, this was just happenstance. It was just so fun. I found a zipper out of my stash that just happened to match this whole color scheme perfectly. I mean, it's almost the same color as one of these butterflies in here. It was really cool. So I have an 8-inch zipper here that I'm going to use as the zipper for my pouch. This is the finished product with the pleat in it. The way they want you to make it is first put your interfacing onto the back of your exterior fabric, and then using a chalk pencil, I marked a line going straight down the middle. They wanted you to crease it with the iron. I'm gonna go ahead and do that in just a second. But after drawing that first center line, I'm going to measure out 2 inches on either side and draw a line there. Those lines I'm going to actually fold the fabric on to make creases, and then I'm going to top stitch. So let me get that done and I'll show you what it looks like. So on my center line, I folded my fabric face together like this so that my interfacing is on the outside. Faces together, and I used my iron to crease this center crease right along that center line that I created. Now on those 2 outside lines, I then folded them outward so that the interfacing touched, and I used my iron to crease on that line. Okay, interfacing touches and crease on that line. Now what I'm gonna do, since this is the outside of my bag and it's going to show, just like the other top stitching that I've done, I'm going to do my parallel stitches here and here to keep those folds together and intact. Now I did my top stitching on both of those 2-inch outside folds, right? But how am I going to get it all together? I now have to take it back to the ironing board, and I'm going to press that fold, those 2-inch folds that I did, press those toward that center fold so it creates a nice pleat. That's how I got this one here. It opens up to the center fold. Once I have it pressed, I'm going to do just a quick basting stitch to hold that pleat together, both on the top and on the bottom of my pocket. So the time has come now for us to assemble our zipper pocket. Now, you have to kind of think ahead to understand how this is all going to work. What we're really doing is just doing one side of the zipper pocket, and it's going to lay flat against the outer panel of your backpack. Normally when we do a zipper pouch, we're doing the inside and outside fabric on one side of the zipper, and then we have to do it again on the other side of the zipper and close those together. Well, today we're only doing one side of that zipper pouch type of sewing. So we have the outside of our pouch, our pleated pouch, and you can see how it opens up just like that. I have my zipper, which fits perfectly to the length of my pouch. I'm going to turn the zipper pull downward toward my pouch, the outside of my pouch, like this, and I'm going to pin it. Guys, I'm going to have to do this twice because I'm going to secure I'm using my pins to secure my zipper in place. I'm going to stitch with my zipper foot on my sewing machine. I'm going to stitch as close as I can to the teeth of the zipper using the zipper foot of my sewing machine, and then I'm going to come back and put the lining part of my pouch onto the zipper. Now I'm going to go through the same process again, attaching the inner pouch rather, to the zipper, just like I did before. And I'm going to move my needle just a little bit over to the left so that the needle stitches a little closer to the teeth of the zipper than I did the first round through. It is difficult for you to be able to see through your fabric in order to know where your presser foot, your zipper foot, is pushing against the teeth. But if you run your fingers right along, you can use your fingers as a guide to know where to stitch. Your fabric, the liner of your pouch, does want to shift and adjust a little bit as you're stitching. Do your best to keep it as close in place as you possibly can. Now guys, this is what we have, and I'm going to take it over to the ironing board and press it real quick before I do a top stitch. But this is what I have. The zipper pull is on the outside with my exterior fabric, and the pleated lining is right side out, facing in the complete opposite direction away from the zipper pull. I'm going to give this a quick press and then do just one top stitch across the top so that it'll stay flat when I put it onto the bag. Okay, so I have completed the outer pouch, the outer zipper pouch for the bag. There's my inside, my lining, here's the outside, and you see that they're both pleated, right? The zipper pull is facing the exterior of the bag. Now the way it all goes together is like this. We have the front panel, the center front panel of the backpack. The backpack front is actually made out of 3 pieces. You have 2 side pieces and the center panel. Now the center panel lays flat. You put your zipper pouch right on top of it, lining it up on the bottom edge and the sides. And then you have the strap reinforcer, the zipper strip. It's not the strap reinforcer, the zipper strip that is going to go right on top to cover that other side of the zipper. It's really easy. So I'm gonna do that and tack down everything so that it's prepared to put on the sides for it, okay? So I have gone through and I stitched down on one edge the zipper strip right there, just one single stitch going across, and I went ahead and did a basting stitch all the way around so that my pocket, my zipper pouch, is now part of that front panel for the backpack. Now before I can stitch down this top edge here, I need to attach the closure, the lower closure strap. This strap is made the same way as the straps, the handles for the backpack, and so I didn't show how to make it. But you're just gonna fold your wide piece of fabric in half and then in half again so that those raw edges are encased. Make sure that you have a folded top and you're going to just stitch around. I again went twice all the way around just to give it a nice finished detail. Once it's made, I have a cut edge here that is not finished. That is going to insert right here in the top of the zipper closure. So I'm going to center it right here, and then I'm going to do 2 parallel seams to close this down and hold my tab in place. So the next step, we have our center panel all completed, our zipper pouch. The next step, we have our center panel all completed, our pleated zipper pouch with lining. The zipper is in the secured closure here, and this is going to be our lower closure for the opening of the backpack, which will be up here. It's really actually kind of a cool thing. Now the next thing that we need to do is put on the side panels to make sure that the backpack is the full width. And so it's just going to be a matter of folding it over and stitching down using that 1/2 inch seam allowance that the pattern requires. When you press it open, because we have so much bulk going on here with the zipper, you're gonna want to press everything out toward this panel. So your seam allowance is going to be going outward like that on both sides, okay? So let's get that done. So I went ahead and pinned both side panels onto the center of my backpack. I pinned it all the way down. You can see, guys, how it kind of extends because I am not perfect. So my fabric did shift and what have you during the creation of the zipper pouch, but that's okay. The cut edge of my side panels are straight. So this is what I did to make sure that I kept everything lined up. I made sure to have the top and the bottom edges of my side panel aligned with the top and bottom of the center panel. And then I pinned as straight as I could. That leaves me with a little bit of the zipper and a little bit of the pouch extended from the edge, but that's not a huge deal. The thing that you want to make sure that you pay attention to though is the zipper pull, which I have opened. It's no longer closed. I opened it up to put it in the middle. Get that out of the way because you're going to be using you're going to be using a 1/2 inch seam allowance. And the presser foot plus the seam allowance is going to run over your zipper pull. You want to get that out of the way. But the other thing that's there is the little metal stopper for your zipper. So just be careful as you approach your zipper that you don't go too fast, go slowly, and that will help you to make sure that you avoid that pull, or that stopper rather, on both ends of your zipper. You have it on both sides. So I'm going to go ahead and stitch this up. Once I'm finished, I'm going to press it open so that my seam allowance is underneath my side panel, and then I'm going to do some top stitching for you. Okay, so now I have my 2 side panels put on. Remember when I said that you need to go really slowly to try and avoid those 2 metal stoppers that are on your zipper? In the video, as I was going through, I actually used the hand wheel on the side of the machine. As I knew that I was getting closer to that zipper, I would just use that hand wheel to just gently turn manually instead of using the foot pedal, because it allows the machine to go slower and I can tell if the needle is going to come into contact with those metal those metal stoppers. So fortunately, yay, I missed them. I pressed my seam allowance out toward my side panel, and then I did that double parallel seam as a decorative stitch to make those side panels lay flat. Now, just as a side note, guys, I do this double stitching for a couple of reasons. One, it looks good. It makes a nice finished end result, but it also gives a little bit more strength and stability to your bag, because as you try and pull, your seam's not going to open up and want to stress as much, because you have 2 rows of stitching that you've created and put in place. So in all of these spots, I've tried to put those double stitching down as a way of just giving some extra support and strength to the bag. Now I can go ahead and put this piece aside, and I'm going to now work on the base of my bag. Now remember, I told you that at the very beginning that you can use cork instead of fabric for the bottom of your bag, for the base. I like the cork. It's waterproof and it sews beautifully. It also comes in these really fun colors. I have some in the shop that's red. I have this minty green. I have several shades of brown. The cork, it's secure, it's strong, it's waterproof, and it gives a nice decorative touch to the bag. Again, making it look like it is more professionally made than it actually is. So what the instructions want you to do is to take your piece of cork or the bottom of your bag, whichever you choose to do. You're gonna fold it in half like this. And then they want you to mark with your marking tool, whether it be a water-soluble pen or whatever, but you're going to mark 2 inches up and 1.5 inches across. So you have a rectangle that you're going to cut out of your cork or your bottom, the base of your bag. You're going to put it on both sides. This cutout is going to enable you to make the flat bottom of your backpack. Instead of actually using pins to pin my fabric onto my cork, I'm going to use Wonder Clips. I'm going to be completely honest with you guys. I'm not a huge fan of Wonder Clips, but they come in so handy when you're using cork. The reason being is that when you slide a pin into fabric, you have those holes already, and the holes that the pin creates will be closed up eventually, right? It all comes back together, the hole doesn't show. But that's not the same thing with cork. When you put pins into cork, that hole remains. And so to avoid damaging your cork, I'm gonna use Wonder Clips, which just clip and hold my 2 layers of fabric, my fabric plus my cork together. There is a rounded side and a flat side to the Wonder Clip. You want to make sure that the flat side is down, because that's going to run along the bed of your machine. You don't really need a whole lot of clips, because honestly, it's not a long distance that you're going to be sewing. And I'm going to use that 1/2 inch seam allowance again, as the pattern calls. And there's the front with my top stitching. I opted to allow the cork to lay flat, because if I folded it onto itself, it was going to get a little bulky. So I let it lay flat and instead opted to fold my fabric onto itself, so the seam allowance goes up toward my fabric. I'm going to go ahead and put the back part of the bag onto the cork, and then we'll move on from there.